Welcome to another episode of Badass Banking. I have been absent from Badass Banking for quite some time. Been very engaged in all the things that we're doing at Movin', and that has been eating up about 70 hours of my week. And frankly, I've been on so many Zoom calls, I'm becoming numb to them. But I read an article by Greg Early, a blog post that he did on Finextra titled "Keep People at the Center of Your Data." And I thought, you know what? I need to talk to Greg about this. Greg, how the hell are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
You know, I'm good. I'm getting fatigued from Zoom, and I'm looking forward to some human interaction with all the people that are out there in the fintech and banking space. So you're in Charlottesville, for people that don't know you. You're formerly the head of content at Gizio, and then you went to Jack Henry and worked in the marketing. Was it marketing or communications? I can't remember.
It was more marketing and creative services. Yeah.
There you go.
Copywriting and branding.
Copywriting, and you're an accomplished writer. I've been following your stuff for quite some time. You've also got a very passionate interest in fintech, which I appreciate, because now you are our director of market engagement, which is a fancy term for marketing. And I think it's a more relevant term for marketing, to be very honest. So anyway, tell us a little about the genesis of this blog post you wrote.
Well, it started when I ran across this concept of Goodhart's Law, which was really that, I guess it's the marketing version of the Heisenberg principle, where, you can't measure anything. Once you measure something, you distort its reality, the reality. And for marketing, I think that it tends to be something that I've been working through in my head, how we've become so dependent on numbers and what we can do with technology that we lose the real value of what we're trying to do with technology, which is to better understand our customer, which to me starts with the concept that we have to know who these people are before we can start picking them apart.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you there. I mean, I think the same thing happens with regards to user experience. James Robert Lay and I years ago developed a premise that instead of focusing on the UX, focus on the HX, and that is the human side of it. When we overthink of people as users, maybe we're losing a little context, and maybe we're losing a little of that human factor that I think is so important for brands to kind of drive forward. But, ultimately, data is not something that solves a problem. It's the information and the takeaway of the data, the insights that are driven, and how we use that data to help people. And sometimes those people are on, in our case at Movin', the client side, working with one of our banks or our fintechs to provide insights into what the story is that the data tells. And then from a consumer point of view, giving me, a consumer, something that I can act upon. I think that's what you're really getting to, right?
Yeah, I think fundamentally, and that's one thing we talk about Movin' a lot, is data-driven insights. And I think that is the experience. I think my jumping off point for the piece was something, an advertising that I read from someone in the fintech space that talked about hyper-personalized data. And the thing that struck me about it was what is hyper-personalized data? That's such a ridiculous term for something that, what we're supposed to be doing with data is understanding better the human experience. And because we're ultimately always selling to humans, and humans are the people that are using our product. So what we need is something that allows them to derive their own insights or lead them down a path where they can make better decisions. But it's the human experience at the bottom of all this that's most important. And I think that that's something that is most exciting about fintech, is its ability to really come from a consumer-driven, consumer insights perspective, rather than this data-driven top-down kind of model that sticks people into categories they don't believe in. It's a hyper-personalized way to do things, if you want to use that term in a correct way, where people can, you can, each insight becomes different for each individual, but they're allowed to have it.
Right.
And that's the power of the tool, I think, most importantly.
This conversation kind of reminds me of the old adage, there's this thing called analysis paralysis that happens.
Yeah.
You know, we get too caught up in maybe sometimes the methodology or the raw data itself and not the story it tells. And, you know, I had a CTO at Affinity Federal Credit Union I worked with back in the day when I was there. And, you know, I ran marketing. And I remember going to him, his name's Kurt, and I went to Kurt and I said, dude, I need more data. And he goes, what do you mean? The core's got all the data you need. What data do you need? And what do you want to do with it? And it dawned on me, I had to explain to him what I wanted to do with data so that he could give me the information, in essence, from that data that I could use. And I think that happens all the time. You know, we focus on these somewhat random KPIs in our dashboards, and we don't ask, what is the story that these KPIs can help us tell? What is the, you know, and how over time those KPIs, as we measure their increase or decrease of certain ratios, what are they really telling us, right? So there's a lot to be learned. Do you think that banks overall are stymied by the data challenge? Do you think that it's just kind of overwhelming, or do you think they realize that, you know, because of legacy providers, they have a hard time turning that data into information that can really be used?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question, because I think it's probably a combination of all those factors. I think that the legacy cores are outdated. I think that there's also, you know, I think fintech has flipped the banking model on its head, where it used to be banks were the people that sat and waited for customers to come to them, and now they have to be much more customer driven. And I think that that's changed a dynamic, and they don't even really understand how to manage that for individual customers. You have also, you know, you're looking at the revenue recession, you're looking at economic issues, and I think that they've accumulated so much freaking data, they don't even know how to process it, because most of them run so lean on that side of their back office that there's really no insights they can garner, because they're not really sure what to do with it all. They don't have people organizing it. And I just saw today that, you know, Apple is upping its payments process. And so you're getting this new wave of embedded finance where big tech companies are getting involved and things of that nature. And so now banks are, it seems to me, are stuck between considering fintechs the enemy and big tech the enemy, and how are they going to define themselves, and who are they going to link up with? I mean, ultimately they have to find allies, and I don't think it's ever been that kind of community to begin with. They're good old boys to each other, but that's because they all sold the same product. Now they have competition, and they have to define themselves in a brand new world. So it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, it is. Do you think the discipline of data science is the answer? I mean, we hear that here internally a lot at Movement. I've heard it within fintech for years. We discussed it at Gizio. You know, I think fintechs very quickly are saying, hey, we need a data scientist in order to solve some of these problems. Personally, I think the issue is asking the banks again, what do they want from the data? What are they, or more importantly, what can they do with the data? There's a lot out there that just don't have the horsepower or the manpower in order to take insights, no matter how strong they are, and actually do something with them. And, you know, so is the answer data science, or is it is it something else? Maybe ease of translation or something.
Yeah, I mean, some of it too, I think ends up being this, I don't know, I go back to like, when things get this complicated, I sort of try to reduce it down to its lowest common denominator. And so I think about bakers at a farmer's market. And so instead of being banks, you have 5 bakeries and they're all selling bread. And, you know, some are different slightly, some are not, but you know, how in that farmer's market environment do people differentiate themselves when they're selling the same fundamental product? I mean, you know, what does their booth look like? How do they talk to the customers? I think there's those nuances tend to get beyond data. I think it's possible that technology provides a great deal of answers that can help you clarify your decisions, but ultimately, I think there needs to be an intuitive aspect to it. And if you're dealing with humans, you have to think about it in a human perspective too. Yeah. And that just takes, you know, management and leadership that's willing to understand that what it is ultimately the product that they're trying to provide to customers and how they're trying to inform their staffs what their goals are moving forward. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, as you all know. I mean, some of the leadership at legacy banks is just not capable of wrapping their heads around the possibilities. And so they get sold a lot of snake oil.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of snake oil out there. I mean, there always has been, and yeah, probably won't change, you know. Anyway, it's a great article. It's a quick read. Probably a 3 to 5 minute read. I'm going to post a link to it below so anyone out there can take a look at it. And, you know, your Twitter link is on there too, I think. What is your Twitter link, by the way? Is it like @GS_early?
@GS_early. And I think there's, you know, I also post at Moving, so you can always reach us there too.
Yep. All right, cool.
Enterprise.
Cool. I really appreciate it, Greg. Interesting concept. You know, it's something we've talked about a long time. I think humanizing data and making your data strategy customer centric, I think, is the way to go. So appreciate your time today.
Well, my pleasure.